Hey there, welcome to another sketchbook show and tell. This sketchbook I just completed, and of course I had to show you right away because I'm moving on to other things. So this sketchbook is the typical sketchbook that I use, the Stillman and Burn. This is the beta series. It's the mixed media sketchbook that's cold pressed that I use for everything because I love it. So the entry page here, I started off with some watercolor shades of the Neo Color 2s and just playing with overlapping textures, see how thick I can get some textures. And of course, this is a dress form with a poofy 80s blouse. This page, I took a sample that I found on Pinterest of an old Kmart ad. This is so quintessential 80s. If you're an 80s kid or 70s kid, you'll recognize this. So this is all done in gouache. This took me quite a long time. I made it. I made the buns look a little overbaked, I think. But this bun right here and the fish looks pretty good. But this is all in gouache. I sketched all out, and I really wanted to pay attention to the detail and make sure that I really focused on studying the detail and the texture of the food. You can see the lemon here. I absolutely love the lemon and the pickle. My favorite. Not so good with the hand lettering, but we'll work on that. All right, this old maid box, again in gouache, all gouache, and I really focused on the cracks and crevices details. This was a photo of a TV dinner that I had found on Pinterest, and again, I need some work on this hand lettering with the gouache, but the whole thing was painted in gouache, and the foil tin is my favorite part with the reflections and that high contrast between the white, the grays, and the blacks really made that pop. I tried to make it just with this gouache palette, this old gouache palette, to make everything look as hyper realistic as I could, just a study in food. I had purchased a set from Holbein, and it was just the pastel set, and I had never had the Holbein pencils before this, and so I tested them out to see how they kind of blend together, how they smooth together, and so this is just a study of those and some other pencils that I had purchased, and this is just a cross-hatching play to see how these pencils laid down, how they laid over the top of each other. So it's just kind of a swatch study, and also this sketchbook is great for pencil. Nice tooth to it, pretty much for everything. This American Legion gumball machine, again, all in gouache, that background super dark to make that globe that holds all those gum pieces come forward, that high contrast of the darks and lights next to each other to create the metal. I love American Legion gumball machines. Every time I see one, I have to put a penny in, even if the gum is stale. I mean, it's just something retro about that. This black and white photo I painted in color, and I used new paint to me, the Kuretake paint set, and I used that for the whole illustration, and I like the way that the colors went down. The paint is a little gummy or sticky than what I'm used to, but I really like these colors, and you can see after swatching and doing a couple sample pages, I really got into this paint really well. But I learned to, work with it, and it is a little bit of a learning curve working with pans like this versus the traditional tubes. But this whole illustration, I love the way it came out. The dust on the table from the flower, I actually picked up my white colored pencil, and you can see that it's very dull. And I scuffed along the top of the texture of the watercolor, and it created that flower dust looked like she made a mess, like I do in the kitchen. The next page, my daughter and I, and also my son and I, always have these drawing battles. On these pages, we use these super new to me, tempera sticks. These tempera sticks I've been playing with for probably about 6 months now, and you can find them pretty much anywhere, and they're student grade, but they're so much fun to use. They're like a lipstick texture, and they dry super smooth, and they dry non-sticky, and you can draw over the top of them. Like this yellow is very transparent, and the silver and the metal colors are very transparent. But anyway, my daughter and I had a drawing battle on the left, and then my daughter drew the flowers on the right while she was visiting me. And then this one is I have a video, I'll link it up here in the cards on this. This was a total mixed media mixture mashup. And this illustration was just like the same process that I used. This was a black and white photograph that I used for a reference. And it was very 1950s. I had this one as a short around Christmas time this year. I think it's very green heavy. But it kind of works though, because it makes the girl in her dress stand out even more, I think. My mom really loved this one. It reminded her of when she was young. This one was a faded 1970s photo reference that I used. So this illustration, a little bit simpler. This was around Christmas time. I don't know if you saw my short on this illustration. I used the Tombow Mono fine liner pen in black ink, the 01 size. I hatched little hatch marks throughout the tree, and also the detail in her pigtails, as well as her dress and the little stroller. Then I went over the top of that with the Inktense paint pan set and the aqua brush that came with it. And I love the little stroller. That stroller just gets me when I see that, because I remember seeing those strollers when I was a kid. Absolutely love that one. This one I did a short on as well during Christmas time. This is another one of those multi-layer steps. I used the Sharpie S-Gel pen, then this Doc Martens Radiant Concentrated Watercolors, gouache, colored pencil, and I just did a video on that. So I will have that at the end of this video. You can click on that and watch that process if you would like to see it, because it's a multi-step process. But this illustration I loved. I mean, who hadn't seen family photos like that before? So this one I illustrated during the first day or two of January, and this is just a mix of inks that was left over on my palette, actually I think from Inktober, and so I just smeared on some inks over the top of, which you can hardly see. I was a little disappointed in that, is some watercolors, the liquid radiant watercolors. So smearing all those 3 ink colors on top mixture made it look very old, and then I took ink over the top of the letters and numbers and then used color pencil on her face. So this was another black and white photo I converted into color, and I use that same multi-step process to achieve like the texture in the snow, their clothes. I made the background very soft and non-detail, so that way the foreground popped and the focus was more on the kids sledding. So again, a lot of gouache, a lot of detail with color pencil, and I just love those little boys' faces. Reminds me of my 3 boys playing. This was another full illustration. I'll link it above here if I can. This was another one of illustrations with that same process, and this came out really well. I think it was successful. Again, using the color pencils to hatch in over the top of the gouache. That technique for me has been like something I've been using for a year now, and I can't stop using it. I'm just in love with that technique. This was a Sketch With Me session with Danny Gregory. This was one of his Thursday sessions, and for me here in Western New York, it is at noon on Sketchbook School, and I love Danny Gregory. If you've never watched his shows or any of his YouTube videos, please check his channel out. He's incredible, but he has really forced me to work on working fast and sketching with a pen and just commitment of getting your marks down. And this was another black and white photograph that I illustrated in that same 4-step process. So I just kept rolling with it using the Doc Martens in the background and really staining that paper. So when I went over the background with the white gouache, it really pushed that background further back, softened it out where that whole image area of the dad and the son really came forward. This illustration, I really didn't get a lot of love on the short, but that's okay. So what I did was I took this old stamp that I had, and I took some ink, covered the stamp pad of base, and then I went and stamped the burgundy, it's like a berry color, onto her dress. Then what I did is I took a paintbrush and smeared in the yellows over the top to give it that retro vibe. I really like the texture, how the texture in the building came out. That was just small hatch lines. That little lamp that's in the window, I just love that as well. This was a black and white photo, so I kind of just made up the colors for this. So I like the way that came out. It was fun. So this was in my previous video. This was just color swatching and tonal value studies from that video that I had about how to use the Doc Martens into your gouache paintings. And so this was just a tonal value study for it. And just using my white gouache and my Naples yellow and just doing value studies. So that's all that was. And this kind of continued on with that. I used my core palette for this, my core watercolors by Golden. I drew the stars, pulled out my watercolor palette, and then I went, there is a rose petal from last summer. Just used some of these warm colors and totally covered the stars that I drew with these warm, bright colors. And then what I did after when it dried is I took my gouache palette and took my cobalt and mixed all the mud on my palette, and those colors together created this muted dark color where it pushed that in the background, and then the stars came forward because they were brighter and pure in color. It was just a quick study. This was another study that I did using those two. So I painted these old milk cartons with the Doc Martens, and then what I did was I illustrated the background using some of those colors from that palette, from the Doc Martens, as well as the gouache. So you can see that the gouache is muted and muddy, and it's pushed in the background. Here's another draw battle with my daughter and I using these tempera sticks. It's so much fun to play with, and my daughter is a teacher's assistant at our local school, and she said they have those in their classroom, so she loves playing with them too. And this was just a color study on mixing black and yellow and the different mediums, getting varieties of greens, and just testing out some hatching with my pencils and some line work, just doodle play. And it's the last illustration. So I did a double page illustration for this. I really wanted the last one in this book to be like super awesome. I spent a lot of time on this one. Same thing I've been doing, and pushing all those background details in the back by making everything soft, muted, low detail. So it pushes everything in the background and makes it soft. So it leads your eye to the imagery in the foreground. So everything has brighter, bolder, more detailed in the foreground. But it also leads your eye into the background because you know that that car is stuck. You know that they're pushing out the car in the snow, and they're pushing that car, and he's going to be heading down the street. So it does lead your eye from the right and to the left. So that was fun. Last thing, my best friend and I are sticker heads, have been since the 80s, and I just threw in some stickers the very last end of the book. My supplies are rolling. All right, so again, this is my Stillman & Burn beta series sketchbook. I started it on the 28th of 2025, and I just finished it just a little over a year later. So I have a couple sketchbooks going at the same time, but there's like my tractor. I have that tractor, except that one's like nicer than mine. Mine's not painted up nice. But anyway, this is the whole sketchbook in review. It was a short one, wasn't it? I think as a whole, there was a lot of experimenting, but also keeping with that retro theme. All right, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you would like to watch the video on the technique that I have for the Dr. P.H. Martin's Radiant watercolors with the gouache, you can watch that video right here. See you next time. Bye-bye.